Happy Sunday morning. My name is Ling, and I'm going to talk about my comic book invention creation. The character's name is Roy the Rescuer. And as you can see, this is Roy right here. He is about 7 feet plus tall, weighs almost 400 pounds. It's all solid muscle plus whatever other kind of muscle the guy has. It's a character that came out of my imagination back in about 2018, and Zach Atkinson, who's my main line artist and also the colorist, was able to kind of fine tune his superhero uniform as well as the scars and the look of his look of the character. So Zach, thank you very much for actualizing him. And someone said, well, okay, why do you want to come up with your own superhero? Why, there's a million superheroes out there. You got the Marvel superheroes, you got your DC superheroes, so what makes him different? And someone said, oh, he gets scars, so he's a little bit like Deadpool. I go, well, yeah, but he doesn't grow pieces back. He's not a funny guy. He's not. He's kind of more dark and brooding and. Okay, so he's like Batman. So Batman's dark and brooding. I said, yeah, but Batman's like, he's kind of got his other deal going on for revenge and all the other stuff, and there's damaged goods as far as his parents, and there's that dark history. He's not like that hero. Okay, so he's like Superman then. He can fly, and he's invincible, and bullets bounce off of him, and he has a fortress of solitude. And they go, no. He's like your average person who lives in probably a house maybe, and bullets actually go kind of through him. He actually gets hurt. When there's a fire, he burns. That's where he gets a lot of the scars from. When he goes and rescues people from situations, or if there's like terrorism going on, he's trying to break up a bunch of these guys, and they shoot at him, they stab him, they hit him with stuff, and his soft tissue, does get scarred. It does get injured, and he has a lot of scars. So and those are the things that I talk about a little bit with this character, is that there's the emotional component. It doesn't matter whether you're strong on the outside and you have all these attributes, you have weaknesses, and we look for his weaknesses through several different series of comic books. So and our comic book chapters. So I introduced this character in this anthology book I came up with called The Undefeated, which I talked about in a couple of other broadcasts earlier. And The Undefeated is a whole series of basically deeper, darker stories that have to do with romance plus mix of sci-fi and fantasy. We kind of mix them all together. If anything, it's very much like the heavy metal series of that used to go out. Metal Hurlant was the way it was called in France. So it's a series kind of like mimicking the heavy metal series. I loved heavy metal when I was a kid, mainly because it had like some naked pictures in there, but also because the art was so incredible, and so many different artists. Moebius, there was Richard Corbin would be in there, and Richard Corbin's he is like my artist guy. Other than my new artists who I work with now, he was my guy at the time. And so there was so much amazing artwork in there, and that's what really attracted me to that. Now maybe I've come up with my own version of a heavy metal type anthology magazine. That said, I wanted to have a recurring character, a recurring story going through things, so that some readers would be attracted to that, and they look at the other stories with different artists and different people. But I always had this constant character going through the thing and developing that character. And so I came up with the Rescuer. And again, his name is Roy Cahill, actually, is his real name. And Roy the Rescuer is his other name, than the Rescuer is his superhero name. And the first the first story, and I'm going to kind of go over with you a little bit. I went over this last time in The Undefeated, which is what this story was all about. So we did it. What we did really was to put a kind of a COVID 19 special. He's got his mask on there, and we turned all three stories that Zach and I had done, and with the help of Jeremiah Lambert, who's a letter and layout person, and we created this whole San Diego Comic-Con 2020 at home COVID-19 special, so that the fans can have a chance of getting this online. And again, here, GenSevenComics.com, GN7Comics.com. You can go on our store and get this special. We made it specially for Comic-Con 2020 at home. So, yep. So there we go. The first story, and here's all the credits. And you can see this guy. This here is what's standing behind me here. Zach made that up as that standee. All right. And again, we talked to summarize about what Roy's all about. But here, we don't even know. The first one was kind of a deep first story. It's called She Killed Me. And that's actually in reference to the love. I think what we'll call that person was like, that was the love of his life, Roy's life. And, he talks about his superhero exploits and some of his abilities to jump only 200 feet into the air, and also to be able to, pick up 50 times his weight, which is 50 times 400 is 20,000 pounds or whatever, and be able to he's able to leap down from buildings and he basically breaks the pavement, but he does not break. His bones are incredibly strong. But, he's really pretty strong guy. He can smash people, and fortunately bullets do kind of take a piece of chunk of flesh out of him, and he gets stabbed, and still his tissue gets hurt, but he doesn't feel any pain, not physical pain. And he's a celebrity, just like anybody who is a real superhero would be a celebrity. But as we know, celebrities actually have a very lonely life. People are always, he has to be careful, who wants a piece of him, right? But one day he meets Elena, and they fall in love, and he's just going to these goth girls kind of, but he's still smitten by her. It's just something about her, and so they fall in love, and he's just, they do a lot of cool things together, and it's real love. It's great, it's great for a while at least, and then I'm not going to show you the last page because I want you guys to get the comic book. But here is the next to the last page, which actually, I was talking about this earlier. This was actually the last page. I had finished. I decided, sorry, next to the last page. I decided to actually kill Roy. I killed the superhero in the original thought. So. Anyway, she dies of a drug overdose, and he can't do anything about it. He's a superhero. He's not a drug rehab medical doctor specialist. He's just some guy who takes feelings very physical about it. You can't do anything about her. She just dies. All right. And so here's the tombstone, and we talk about people's weaknesses and things, and then we're talking about really, what is Roy's kryptonite, right? And his kryptonite is love. And it was her. So this is the last page. So he just stops eating and stops drinking, and he just dies. So, but I'm not gonna show you the last page because last page is cool, and there's some familiarity with some of the frames. I was talking to Zach about, hey, let's do something that reminds somebody of some other superhero in the past, and we did that. That was kind of cool. So you guessed it, he lives, because it wouldn't be a chapter 2 to 3 if he didn't live. And here he is back to, unfortunately, he's not rescuing much. He's killing people nowadays, and he's kind of a little bent out of shape there. And they get all the people, the crowds watching, and unfortunately, when you kill people, it's not always, a really heartwarming sight. And so some people, I don't know, I realized I always have people vomiting in Roy's, at least in this episode of Roy's cartoon. But anyway, you could see Roy's still kind of hooked on Elena even in that one. And he can't even sleep. He hasn't been sleeping at all since she passed away. So yeah. Anyway, someone asked me where does Roy live, and it turned out I just put Roy in New York City because that's, you know, when I visited New York City with my ex at the time, and it was really a fantastic experience for me. And so I picked a building that was about 20 stories high or so in New York City to put our suicide attempted or suicidal person on. And of course, who are you going to call when someone's in a tall building? You're going to call Roy. So they call up Roy, and he unfortunately can't. The building's like, you know, 1,000-something feet tall, and so he's like, okay, well, I'm going to the elevator. So he does. And he sees her and he talks to her, and he has this weird flashback because he sees Elena. He does not see the potential suicidal person, and you know, he just has these flashbacks. So she tells her name is Marta, and she goes, you know, I'm really sorry you came up here. I'm ready to go. And she just kind of just drops herself off the side of the building, and you see the ghostly image of Elena kind of coming with her. And he says, hey, you know, Elena fell, but she just fell to the floor. This person can hit the pavement if he doesn't get his act together. No, says he moves very quickly. So he jumps. And remember, he doesn't fly. So he's got to do some pretty dramatic thing here to catch her. And he's only got a few seconds. You know, when you guys do physics, you know, people only take a few seconds to land from 1,000 feet. So he does his thing, and wow, that's a great splash page by Zach, showing him grabbing her and flipping over and landing on his feet. Now, someone going at that speed, honestly, physical therapy guy would say, you know what, you could have put his hand on her neck, really, but because then she won't get a whiplash. But it's a comic book, so whoops, we got away with that. Not really. We should put her hand on her neck. It was too late. I just liked it like that. The hand on the neck thing would have looked kind of weird, so that worked out. So I'm not gonna show you the last page. But yeah, there's some. So I'll just tell you, it's he gets some kind of closure because, you know, here's another suicide person, but this time he was able to save her. So, you know, he's has maybe some peace that way. And, okay, so the next one, again, we talked about, and Jeremiah did a fantastic job with the lettering here, and you know, he put the titles on the series here. Whoops. Okay. And so it's a flashback, and we don't know exactly where Roy comes from. Matter of fact, I don't want to reveal it till much later. But Roy here he is in high school, flashing back all the way here, and he is beautiful, unscarred, and like he is the hero of the day. So he plays basically wide receiver position for his high school football team. It's like any other kid, except look how big he is. The guy's supersized. And I never played football. I wouldn't have lasted 5 seconds in football, kind of almost collisions and stuff. But here he is. You know, he's amazing. You know, imagine having basically a rhino as a wide receiver, just stick the football on his horn and let him charge, and that's pretty much what happens. And he just bashes through all these other defenders. It's not even a contest, and you got all these defenders hanging on to him. You know, he's got 2 people hanging on. He's just running. It doesn't matter. So slow down. He's won every single track meet without even trying too hard. He doesn't want to, you know, look too good. And he's bashing more people down. Nobody can stop him. On touchdown number 10, and in the end, he does 35 touchdowns and breaks the national record in high school. I think the actual record for touchdowns in a single game. I don't know if it was total touchdowns or touchdown by one team. I think it's like 29 or 30, which is actually, that's a lot. But I'm not sure if that's all done by one team. you know, so everybody, big hero, and he's at a party, and he's still the big hero, and then now he's, he's basically in a airplane flying to get all his amazing interviews by all the colleges that want to recruit him. And of course, tragedy strikes, and the big old lightning strike hits the airplane, and the airplane goes down and down and down and then boom. Kind of not a total crash landing, but a slider, and people are all messed up. But you know, things are leaking, fuel's leaking, and what Roy does best, he starts to rescue people, and he starts to bring them out one at a time. And then all of a sudden, fuel starts to ignite, and he starts to bring them out two at a time. He's going a little faster, saved a few dozen people already, and then unfortunately, Zach does one of his amazing explosions there, and then, oh God, he's got a big old plane fire to have to deal with, but he's not going to put out the fire. Superman would have just blown it out, right? Easy peasy, but not Roy. Roy gets a freaking run into the fire, and unfortunately, he starts to burn and burn and burn. He does, but he doesn't stop going back and getting people until the end. So the big old explosion comes and knocks him down, and he does not get back up. And I'm not going to show you the last page. But as you can see, here's our, go on to the website, GenSeven comics.com. You are going to see our other things that we've been working on the past year. That's Annabelle and the Cannibal, and a couple more Undefeated series, and of course Genesis 2 is what I started with. So yeah, we've done some pretty cool content, in my opinion. I'm biased, but worked hard on it, and the artists, letters, layout people, and of course my great folks who Eric Reynolds and Beth Coulter, they're my team who helped me promote, and not to mention that the overall overseer of my campaigns are Michael Brandvold. So I have a lot of help in doing promotion, and also they're kind of like my overseers. They direct me a little bit, make sure that I am not going overboard on too many different areas. So there was only one artist who worked on, or I should say two artists. I don't count myself as the artist. I count myself kind of more like the writer, creator guy. I do the storyboards to give Zach just some approximate framing on how to, shots that I want to see, and how the pacing is through the whole book. And then Zach does all the lines, final lines, and the colors. So Zach is probably, if anyone's the main artist, it's Zach Atkinson. And then of course Jeremiah Lambert, who's, I just give him free reign. He's like, Jeremiah, you're better than me at kind of putting things where the balloons are supposed to go in the captions, and he doesn't need much direction. He just does his thing, and which is really great. I don't want to direct people. I really don't. I'd rather just tell them approximately what I want to see, and when they know what they're doing, it's so much better. I can just have the pleasure of creating and just coming up with storyboards, and then letting those guys go loose. And that's I think they would prefer that, and I know I certainly do. So only basically one main artist, and then which is Zach Atkinson, and Jeremiah Lambert. I would consider an artist too, because I see all the special effects, the special sound effects on the comic book, where they're all pretty much Jeremiah's interpretation of what was going on, and the way he did the lettering and emphasized certain words. That was all Jeremiah too. So and everyone's an artist who works on a comic book. even the writer if they are actually involved in framing and pacing. So, yeah. So so I've come to the end of just showing what the rescue is all about, and I guess I can go into more depth about um, who the rescuer really. So the rescuer actually kind of I use, and may sound a little ego driven, but yeah, okay. So I use myself kind of like the emotional framework behind that was pretty much Alan's kind of a rescuing kind of guy, and um, I don't run into burning. Okay, one time I almost ran into burning. Okay, I did run into a burning building once, but I stupid. I kicked down his door and it was the wrong door, and I got charged for it. So the other person was upstairs. I thought I heard screaming, but it was pretty funny. I was kind of like, I didn't think of myself as a superhero back then. I just thought, fire. I don't see any fire engines coming. I better hurry up. A long time ago. But I guess all of us have a hero in us. The firemen, police, even. Uh, I didn't bash too many of the policemen. A lot of soldiers, definitely soldiers, armed forces. I don't. I think people like to diss everybody until they're actually doing it. If you're actually doing it, it's a whole different ball game. And especially if when people are shooting back at you, you just go into a different mode. So I again have a lot of respect for people in the armed forces and law enforcement and firemen or EMTs. You see a lot of bad things when they go into someone's house and the person's bleeding or they're dying. So all these are first line of defense people. There are superheroes really, and even neurosurgeons and nurses and cardiothoracic surgeon. Anybody who does some kind of surgery or has to go in and they have to, you're going to cut into human flesh and save somebody or make them better. You know, um, you got to, those are things that I think, we all have to think about. Who are our heroes? I mean, even now, the grocery clerks, people who are delivering us our food and keeping us safe right now. That's, we should appreciate pretty much just about everybody who is contributing to keeping our society together. And I think Roy kind of embodies the whole thing about heroes and about sacrifice, and he doesn't think about himself. He actually thinks about this is the task at hand. I need to save this person, and I think if our society was more magnanimous, where we're actually trying to help other people, knowing very well that by helping everybody else, we're actually helping ourselves, and maybe that's kind of a weird kind of selfishness, but I think it's appropriate that everybody helps everybody else and not get too selfish about things. So, the first episode of Roy was pretty looked very tragic, because it seemed like he had lost everything. He didn't decide he wasn't worthy to continue living. His heart was so badly broken, and he was broken that he just decided I'm just gonna die. And so in that episode, which I thought I would just end abruptly, people were shocked because I said, okay, that's the end of the story. They go, you killed him. I go, well, he dies. So it's scarred that character and move on. But people were like, no. I mean, even the most hardened comic book publisher and writer, which is Mel Smith, who's one of my editors for my comic book Genesis 2, he was like, oh, that's I feel terrible. And I gave the comic book to a couple of my friends, and one of them, "Oh, that's really bad." And I'm like, okay, well, all right, but that's how bad I felt. Okay, maybe I should try to water it down a little bit. So the last page of that first episode, I did kind of make some concessions about things. Yeah, obviously he survived, but you know, it's not easy coming out of heartbreak. I think that's something all of us can relate to, and so I kind of I put some stuff in there that I thought would be better. So I do want to have this character be something that my agent Ephraim Walker will pitch down in Hollywood, and it could be a great TV series. You have things like The Witcher, which is a new thing with Henry Cavill, who used to was playing Superman, and but he's like kind of a brooding, dark kind of guy. He doesn't really talk a whole lot, whereas this guy actually thinks and talks a lot. He's actually kind of a metrosexual kind of guy. He's very verbal. He's got a clean outfit. He washes his outfits, maybe has many of them. I don't know. And he's a very eloquent person, and so at least when he's speaking and thinking. So having something that's kind of like more like, remember the Beauty and the Beast series? There's this, the Vincent was the Beast, and he never. Yeah, then they did a reiteration of it again, reboot of it in the 2000s, 2014. But back in the 1980s, they did one with Ron Perlman and who is the lady that was in Terminator? Linda Hamilton. Yeah, and they did that back in the 80s, 1987. It ran for 2 seasons. So we're going to come up with, I'd like to do Roy as the kind of emo superhero, and he would be the kind of like the Beast because he's all scarred up and ugly. And, but yeah, he's got money, he's got fame. Doesn't mean much. Don't have love. So I want to make sure that his search for maybe the right person goes on and on and on. Like a TV series. I don't know. Try to figure that out. Anyhow, I've had lots of stories of heartbreak from my other friends throughout, and just some of them are haunting to me. One of my friends said that he actually found the love of his life, and she died in a car crash or something. And I remember that because he's in love. He found somebody else, and he's happy. But he told me actually, that was it. That was the person. And that story was, yeah, that. And this is after I wrote. This is after I wrote this story, and I'm like, wow, maybe I could do something where it incorporates that because my father passed away, my mom was just destroyed, and I could realize that was the love of her life, right? And they were together for over 50 years, and she's not like she's like trying to get out there on Tinder and look for another person. No, sorry, I shouldn't say that. But anyway, but it's not like other people are going out looking for other people right away. Sometimes you do that because you don't want to feel the pain, and it's good to get into another relationship and so that you don't have to feel it, and you distract yourself. And sometimes, I think I've kind of buried myself that way several times to try to just distract myself and not feel things so I can just keep going. And maybe that's where he doesn't feel pain, the psychic pain of things, or physical pain. But you want to try to not feel psychic pain, you will do things to just keep yourself going. So anyway, any future type of episodes for Roy? I think that'll revolve probably around digging down more into his origins, and also at the same time looking at other kinds of heroic feats that he can do. I was thinking, yeah, I always have terrorism things in our in the comic books because we're still living in a day and time where terrorism is alive. Well, and terrorism actually has been going on for decades, decades and decades. So, from the IRA to what's going on in the Middle East, and now when it's starting to come home to to our country, we're starting to see stuff that's been blown up in Boston Marathon and military bases, and then all of a sudden it's just became a big deal. Now COVID-19's come and all the terrorists are kind of hiding out. There's not too many of them, and they don't want to get COVID-19, not be able to do their job. So we don't see as many acts going on anywhere. But my concern right now is that we're extremely vulnerable to any kind of terrorist activities because we're distracted, and so our eyes will not be on the ball. But not to say that our government has not taken care of a lot of things for a while, because they have, but we don't know about it because they don't want to panic us. So there you go. So we're fortunate that we haven't had a lot more attacks, country or terrorist attacks. But I'm gonna continue to put the terrorism thing there because I want people to be alert to what other things can be going on, and not to drop a guard. So I might put that kind of element in one of the next episodes, and so toward the future. So I have a lot of, again, between Annabelle and the Cannibal, Rescuer, Undefeated, and then Genesis, I have like 4 basic intellectual properties that I came up with. And I'm going to probably try to focus on those a little bit more to try to develop them. Because once you get the foundation of characters, you can't just keep expanding your universe without getting help. And so what was really good was I'm going to talk about this at my next webcast, live stream, and let people know that I'm working on other collaborations where a lot of the pressure is off of me to be the sole, creator of a lot of content. And and that's the thing about coming up with, a superhero, then you have a little comedy stuff, and then you have the big blockbuster type of series in Genesis 2. Is you have to work with other artists and writers and creators to come up with various other content, because honestly, it really is a lot of fun working with other people. And again, working with Zach and Jeremiah on The Rescuer has really been a great pleasure because, again, there's, I pretty much do the storyboards and the writing, and I think Jeremiah has very, doesn't put too much input in that because, everything seems to be, he checks everything off and everything's fine. And Zach, is just we're very complimentary in our vision of looking at things, and he just does a really fantastic job on just where my image of my head in my head, he just was able just to lay it down on digital photoshopped comic book panels that are just really great to look at. So I have a lot of satisfaction in doing these books. And again, The Rescuer was the last thing that we did right as Comic-Con started, was just finishing those pages. And it came screeching in at the last minute. That's the 3rd installment, which was called Scars. And it really just kind of documents Roy's transformation from being like superhuman jock athlete to basically superhuman hero, and then gets the uniform and all the other stuff. So there's a little element of kind of like Peter Parker, Spider-Man kind of thing in this thing too, where he was this average guy, above average guy, but he was still a human. But they were just like some superhuman. Or we have superhumans on this planet. They exist in some of the athletes that we have, athletes, some of even people warriors, spies that we don't know about. There's some really incredible people out there. We just, most part, I don't think we ever hear about them. Best kept secrets, right? And so if I have any questions, I'm really ready to answer. And so anybody wants to fire away, that would be great. All right. Let's see. So yesterday was my birthday, so I'm really old as bleep. And it's actually, I feel better actually at this age than I did when I was half this age. And part of it's for the nutrition, the fact that I'm not working 80 hours a week anymore. There's a lot. Okay. The belt around the rescuer. Well, I think his is his man purse right here. That's a man purse with dollars. Looks like this shape of Actually, his sunglasses. I don't. Zach did this thing. I could make a lot of fun and just guess what these things are. So anyway, so the superhero look, and also the it's like the utility belt, right? Like kind of like the Batman utility belt. Zach did that. He put in the knee pads down here. You can see him. The boot look, the gloves, the space. Remember how the astronaut space collar? A lot of that was Zach's kind of design. Even the blue cross. I'm sure Blue Cross and Blue Shoe will just love this character. But yeah, Zach came up with the basic design of the entire outfit. And let's see, coming up the superhero look for him, the scarred eye, that look, the raccoon eye kind of thing. It was kind of cool that Zach put in. But I put down the fact that his hair is all burned on one side. That was part of the whole thing, was to make sure that he wasn't like this, got all this nice hair. I'm sorry, he's all scarred up on one side, so none of the hair grew back. So he's got one side more scarred than the other, and so you cut that off, and he looks okay. But you can see he's pretty. All those things around him, all those little marcations, are those scars on his body. So. Um, his gloves are, I don't know, I think Zach just did it for the look. He's got gloves on. It's just the look of the thing. I guess Superman doesn't have gloves. Batman has gloves. Flash, that Flash has gloves. So that's a glove thing. It's just a superhero outfit look, I think, that Zach came up with. And so I thought he did a fantastic job. And, he's a lot of rescuers' design is Zach, other than my specifications for that to be bigger and wider and all the other good stuff. It's scarred up. So let's see. So good. So let's see what else. No, we are not going to put Annabelle the Cannibal and Vengeance Vixen together with the Rescuer. I can blend the other two together, but that's the whole different genre, and I'm just going to keep them separate. Someone asked me if we were going to put the Rescuer and blend it in with any of the Genesis 2 stuff, and I'm not sure the timing. Like maybe Roy came about already just a few maybe decades before Genesis 2 came about, because we don't show any flooding and other kind of stuff going on. If anything, Roy takes place probably within the next, we currently are 10 years from now. So, and again, stories. Well, again, I want to have develop Roy's character. I want everyone to see that he is a human being, and that he's thoughtful, and he's sensitive. He's got emotions. Um, maybe, and he probably has lots and lots of regrets. And not that I have a lot of regrets. I think Roy is the person who has regrets. I realize that sometimes you can't regret. You have to move forward, but he can't. He continues to regret things. And again, I think regret means that you feel like you could have done a better job, guilty. A lot of people, I've met so many people, all they do is they just hope for a better past. they just they just keep thinking, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that, and I could go back and change things, and it's like you, you can't. You just got to keep going. And you have some very unhappy people because they are stuck in that weird mindset that if they had done something in the past, it would make their future better or make their present better. And we could always be thinking that way, but that's not going to change anything. So that's why you see a lot of people are really depressed, because they're that mindset where they failed already, and that failure will follow them throughout the rest of their life. Well, okay, yeah, sometimes you make a mistake and it follows you for a little bit, but learn from it and then just move on. I mean, I can't tell you how many mistakes I make, but those are all, to me, that's my tuition for being alive, right? And mistakes are either they're costly on an emotional level or costly on a time level, but at the same time, you continue to move forward, and you know you can get some absolution for everything that you do as long as your mindset is there and that you're helping other people constantly and helping yourself so that you can help other people. And there's nothing wrong with being selfish. If you're not in a position to help people, you should not be helping people because you're going to drag yourself down and you're not going to be good help anyway. Um, so how many books have we created? So I've only created three chapters, and I don't recall. Let's see how many pages. Um, I'm not sure how many pages the rescuer. Some of the stories are only 5 pages long. Some of them 6, and then the last one we did was probably 10 or 12 pages. So we are hoping that we can do maybe another undefeated's coming up. We're going to do another 10 or 12 pager. The rescuer in that one. Maybe this one he's doing finding terrorists or something pretty cool. So I might continue on. Again, he's going to have his thoughts as he's doing this, about whether he's eradicating evil or are these people just, people who are misdirected, or maybe that he's not seeing both sides properly. And there's going to be a lot of that going on, and or he questions a lot of things that he's doing. So, so we're going to continue on the rest of it. I think he's a great character to develop. So again, the characters. If I, I'm not sure we can add the rescuer into like the Genesis 2 thing. If we do, he'll be a lot older, and maybe again, he does age, but we might that's the only characters I would try to cross over is some of the Genesis 2 with the rescuer maybe. Um, Again, we talk about the aging process, right? People don't age, then he would never grown up. So yeah, maybe just mature but they don't age. Let's see. Yeah. Um, so we're going to continue with more installments. I think every now and then after we've accumulated another 3, we'll just turn it into one another giant compilation of the character. Whether we come up with a whole comic book related to him, um, not sure yet. So we will. So we're having a lot of. It's going to be an interesting fall for me because in the fall we have to decide, how many other projects am I going to work on. So I'm already distracted with 2 other projects, but one of them is not. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be doing all the creation of and art editing. I'm just going to I'm going to really take a backseat to that and just have them shoot pages at me. I'll make a couple comments, but I don't want to be involved too deeply on the creative aspect of that. I'm just taking a backseat as a publisher and seeing how that feels. The other project, I don't want to talk too much about because I'm going to save that for later. The other project is I'm definitely the art director, and I'm not involved in the writing, but I'm involved in a lot of the pacing and the paneling. I work with the writer one-on-one, and again, Eve from Walker is also involved in the creative project, and and the process of he'll be pitching that that idea to studios, film and TV studios. The writer, Ryan Seagal, I'm just going to be in the background, kind of not writing the dialogue, but all kind of editing, more of an editor of everything that he's writing, only because I need to turn it into a comic book. And sometimes when you write up, the writing doesn't match up with what you're doing in a comic book. I mean, he wrote this one paragraph, and it took up 2 whole pages of the comic book, and I'm like, whoa! I mean, that's I said that's great. It was necessary, but we can't have one paragraph because he's got like 30 paragraphs. They came up with like 60 pages, and we said we're just trying to get into 30 pages, not 60. So we're the art editing and paneling and working with the writer is super critical to getting a decent looking graphic novel, for sure. So, any other questions? I'm like Thor. It's like, oh, I already have things to say. Are you ready? So I've been vision. Oh, yeah, that's a Marvel thing. I thought that was one of the funniest lines. Is that he's always talking and mouthing off, and he's running out of things to say, waiting for him to be rescued or someone else to save him. That's great. So again, humor is good. I try to inject some humor. I don't think Rescuer doesn't have any humor. Totally humorless character, and yeah, but it's about being serious about certain topics. So that's where I'm serious. Um, I think Genesis 2 occasionally we do something silly in there, but not often. And of course, Animal Accountable, it's all nothing but campy, not being serious about anything, and not being politically correct about anything either. So can't keep doing that. It makes me go crazy. So if anybody is interested, um, we our the store is pretty comprehensive. You can buy chapters. You can buy the whole digital download for Genesis 2, and again, the Annabelle and the Cannibal, Vengeance Vixens, Triple X is for adults only, and all the other comic books. Defeated is for mature audiences, so that's 18 or 17. Just let your parents be okay with it. And then, yeah, the Rescuer, the latest one we put out, is kind of like PG 11. We try to get rid of as much nudity as we could. And Zach pasted some things over some people's body parts in very tasteful manner so that it wouldn't be so racy. But yeah, so we try to dilute a few things so that it's more people can buy the comic book and not be chastised by their parents for buying stuff. But, yeah. So I will show a little bit about how Roy didn't look so good after he got in that car in that airplane thing, but Zach drew him pretty. You can see all the blisters and everything. He got pretty burned up, and he was in the hospital. I mean, unlike a lot of our superheroes, our superheroes don't wind up in the hospital. I mean, that's the other thing is we watch the Marvels and we watch a lot of the stuff, and they get beat up and they're not in the hospital. I mean, it's almost unreal. Um, I think there should be consequences of engaging in any kind of battle and violent acts and stuff like that, and to have nobody wind up in the hospital and going through months of rehab, and that's pretty amazing. I mean, they skip all the actual pain of battle and injury. They're cut. They got some cuts and bruises, and then they die. But it's not. That's not real life. I mean, I'm a physical therapist, so I've seen people lose their limbs and no, they don't grow back, and no, we can't always put them back on either. I've seen people break bones and have horrible injuries, and no, they don't go back to running again. Sometimes they can barely walk normally, and so I really want to say that a lot of the stuff that we see on films and stuff are not really what happens. People injure themselves doing the dumbest, smallest little things. You can break bones. So this is my way of maybe of introducing a little bit more realism. That no matter who you are, you can get hurt. And you might have been in the hospital. It's not so hot. And there's repercussions where this guy has a lot of scars. And, no, he's not cracking jokes like Deadpool afterwards. It's trying to make it a little bit more serious. So yeah. So sorry about being so dark about stuff, but part of being just talking about the way superheroes work is we want to escape into a little bit of the fantasy world, and there's nothing wrong with that. And but I always the rescuer is always more real. It's, there's the psychic injuries, the physical injuries. I stuck that in there on purpose because I felt it was kind of responsible for me to just go into another superhero phase, and it's like, ho hum, here it comes again, another superhero thing, and again, not show all the vulnerabilities that really go on, and I guess there's nothing wrong with the superhero genre. Uh, I I just think it's like, trying to build up expectations of people to be a superhero is one thing. It's nothing just to be a hero, you know. I mean, just being someone who did something that was beyond what your average bloke or lady does. That's just great. So, and I've been exposed to a lot of people who are just amazing people who've done some really cool things for me, and they didn't have to do anything. Yeah, that's the other thing. You don't have to. If nobody even bothers reaching out to do anything for somebody, they're not a hero. They're being selfish. So, yeah. But again, nothing wrong being selfish if you have to save your resources for another day to help somebody some other time. But, okay. I'm running out of things to say. So, yeah. So I hope everyone's enjoyed the installment here. And But who are my actual real favorite superheroes in real life? Like again, I really enjoy the Hulk because the Hulk is it's pretty funny. He's what I think the Hulk is what happens when we take away all our inhibitions, and then we're just exposed to this very raw person who's like very, very uninhibited about their emotions. And I think that's the Hulk. And then you turn him into this, the rage monster, just always mad and breaking things and tossing things around, and people are always picking on him, so he's always even more mad. People are afraid. So Hulk is definitely the Green Hulk. So yeah, Hulk is great. And then of course, everybody likes Spider-Man. Likes Spider-Man because he's a vulnerable, emotionally vulnerable person, which is good. But again, he got killed in one of the cartoon version that came out lately of the Spider-Man. So that was good. People die. It happens. And I thought that was realistic. Um, any other superheroes? These are all superheroes from when I was a kid. I like the Submariner, which is now, you know, um, they call him something else. Yeah. So Prince Namor, that was kind of cool. He looked kind of like Spock with wings on. So that's why they changed his look, and now he's Jason Momoa. So, you know, that's cool. So I could base a superhero on real life. What should base it off of? That's a really great question because I just don't have some right off the cuff answer. Um, I guess we look at two athletes as being the superheroes, the people who are they were the athletic feats. Um, but maybe we should be looking at the people who are doing the most for humanity. Uh, so okay, Elon Musk, and he's got so many critics, and they accuse him of being misleading and a narcissist and all the other stuff. But actually, for someone who has achieved the amazing amounts of things he's achieved as far as just at a business level and technology and rockets into space, and he's still pretty funny. He shows up on a Big Bang and then Young Sheldon. He still kind of makes fun of himself a little bit, and I think people don't give people have got to give this guy a big break. I actually think he's got a great sense of humor. And by the way, he has Genesis 2. He has that, and he did not send a cease and desist order for me He didn't say stop publishing this day. You know, you're painting me look in a bad light. No, I didn't. He's if anything, it's the opposite. I own, you know, a Tesla and just love the car, and so yeah, so I'm definitely a little bit of a disciple of his, a groupie, you want to call that. And so yeah, I actually I think he would be if we're to take a superhero and turn that into be that. But again, Elon is, he's flesh and blood. So I'm not gonna. But cerebral and his ability to push and push and push and push and push and push and push. That's a superhero that I have to say is the real superhero right now. Getting a table at Comic Con. I think it is the hardest thing on the planet is to get into Comic Con as an exhibitor. I'm going to try to go for being a panelist next year, see what happens, and maybe do an exhibit also. But not only is it really hard because there's a 5 or 6 year waiting list, I got in 3 months out of fluke. Honestly, I did WonderCon, and they saw my display at WonderCon. They said, "Man, this is a great display." I said, "Please get me in Comic Con. I'll do anything." So I got their booth fees are quite hefty. So I did get a space at Comic Con in 3 months. So yeah, yeah. So that was great, and so I've got now. Once you get your table at Comic Con, you got to hang on to it for dear life because you could lose that table. You know, I'm interested to see what next year is going to bring because next year maybe a whole different ball game. I don't think there'll be as many exhibitors for a lot of reasons because of the we're going to hit a depression and the fact that many of them could not exhibit this year may spell doom for a lot of the exhibitors. And so there'll be some spaces opening up probably next year, and I hope I can grab a bigger space. Yeah, and are there table spots better than others? You know what I heard is that I heard there's no bad spot in Comic Con at all. And I would have to say, yeah, that's very true. Everybody's just mulling around the giant circle, but I would rather be closer to the entrance next time because when people come in, they're more fresh rather than me kind of being in way in the back, you know, on the corner. But honestly, people are wandering around this giant circle. But you know, yeah, it would be great to have a better location where people can actually see me when they come in for the first time and they're fresh because people are so burnt out by the end of the day. So yeah. And so I'm very lucky, very very lucky to be at Comic Con, and they haven't bashed me about breaking too many rules yet. And again, I'm hoping that next year, you know, even if Comic Con doesn't materialize again next year, hopefully I can at least put in my pitch to be on a panel and see what happens. So anyway, thank you very much. My time is up. And again, it's been wonderful. I'm going to be back at 4 o'clock Pacific time to talk about some of the new collaborations I'm working on. And one is a sci-fi collaboration that has really interesting view, kind of like a blend of real historical events, and put sci-fi into it. And the other one is a mob comic book written by a couple, written and drawn by a couple of gentlemen who've been in the industry for years out, and they're based out in New York. So thank you very much. I will see you guys hopefully at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you.